Welcome one, welcome all. The Strange One shows when the Strange One is needed, and he is needed for Fanfic Tuesday. Today's story is Vilainous Heroics by ibelieveinahappilyeverafter. Summary. Eraserhead is an underground hero who is constantly busy and doesn't have time to be dealing with new villains, even if they aren't all that villainous and make the night interesting. President Mike is the latest up-and-coming villain in the world, and he has a point to prove everyone out there, as long as he doesn't keep getting distracted by Eraserhead. Aizawa Shota is someone who soon learns that there's more to someone than the mask they show to the world, especially when it comes to playing hero as in villain. Yamada Hizashi learns that there is more to heroics and villainy than he could ever have thought, especially in a world where some heroes still care about those lost in the shadows. Inspired and dedicated to Corndog Patrol's villain Mike AU on Tumblr. A word from the author. Bonjour, meshes. Right, for those of you who don't know me, I'm not new here, but this is my first Hero Academia story. As you will quickly be able to tell, this is inspired and dedicated to Corndog Patrol's villain Mike AU over on Tumblr. Definitely go check them out and check out their AU because their art is to die for, and I couldn't help but to cobble up something together for it all. For those who need a recap or don't know, this is an AU in which President Mike never went to UA, and thus never met Eraserhead. President Mike ends up becoming a villain, and the hero who always ends up stopping him is Eraserhead himself. They're 30, and they're at the start of the show, and Eraserhead is still the teacher of Class 1A at UA. Villain Mike tends to be a bit of a flirty goofball in this AU, however, and it all ends with a happy ending. Spoiler alert. Also, yes, the story is Eraser Mike because I'm a humble shipper who have been reading every story for those two on AO3 for the past week or two. Hopefully I can provide a good story for you all and to do this AU the justice it deserves. Enjoy! Warning, this story will touch upon themes of past child abuse in the future, and I explain my take on President Mike's background in this AU. I'll put warnings on chapters and questions in the futures, but here's your warning now. One of the scenes at the end of this chapter was directly inspired by the comic made for this AU by Anxious Sailor Soldier over on Tumblr. So, sorry for not giving you the credit before. I definitely know I meant to where it was such an amazing work of art. Definitely go give the artist some love. And now, onto the story. Aizawa Shota stared at the aged, decrepit bar that was buzzing with music so loud the building itself might as well have been shaking itself to pieces. He certainly wouldn't be surprised if the crumbling brick walls were from the music, if this is how nights normally went. He had originally been responding to a call about a public disturbance that had possibly morphed into a bar fight, but one look at this place had Shota rubbing it at the bridge of his nose and wondering if it was too early for retirement. While he didn't mind breaking up the average bar fights as they could lead to rather dangerous outcomes, it was never his favorite thing to do while on patrol. Still, he was a pro hero, and an underground one at that. If he had to break up a bar fight, then so be it. He just wished he didn't have to deal with the drunken idiots who didn't have control over their quirks. Adjusting his goggles and swinging himself down the street level, Shota lightly landed on the balls of his feet before settling his capture weapon back around his neck. Carefully as he circled around the back of the bar and entered through the unlocked employees-only door. The music was even louder when he entered, and the kitchen was in utter disarray. Shota wasn't sure if that was from the supposed bar fights, though, or if that was just a typical state of the bar. He was willing to believe the latter, considering the area he was in. Creeping towards the swinging door, he paused as he surveyed the bar just out of sight and saw. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. There was a fair amount of what looked like drunken idiots, but everyone in the bar seemed to be singing the same annoying American song that was playing on the karaoke machine. Feeling a vibration from his pocket, Shota inched his way back to the dark kitchen and took his phone out, scrolling through the text alert from his agency, the only number he let through when he was out on patrol besides a select few others. Update. A bar on Block 7 thought to be held hostage by new villain with unknown quirk. Proceed with caution. Wonderful, Shota muttered to himself, looking back up at the door trying to decide if he could force someone else in his agency to deal with this. Considering he was the only hero not actively out on a mission, he doubted it. Creeping back into the bar, Shota looked for whoever the new villain could be. A second look showed a lot of people who were singing looked nervous or frightened, but a few of the drunker ones looked to be having a time of their no doubt short lives. It was unsurprising to see that almost everyone in the bar were well into their 30s and 40s, but at least that meant he didn't have to worry about getting some stupid kids out of here. Looking to the bar, Shota silently realized that he may have found his villain. He doubted there would be any other reason for a man to be dressed in nothing except leather and piercings with yellow hair sticking up like a bird's crest. He had also had on what looked like to be some type of support equipment around his neck and ears that had Shota placing a hand on a scarf. If this was the villain, then his quirk was unknown, but it didn't look like a physical mutation quirk. That was some good news for Shota, at least. If it was a danger, then he could erase it and be done with this mess. The man looked well on his way to being drunk and had all the enthusiasm of a university student out for break, tossing back shots and looking to be singing along to the song along with the rest of the bar. While this new villain didn't look like much of a threat, Shota had never gone wrong in being cautious. After one last look over to make sure there were no obvious weapons or traps, Shota leapt forward and threw his scarf out, wrapping it around the man tightly and yanking him off the bar and onto his feet, shot glass jerking out of his hand with the movement and shattering on the floor. Oi, oi, that's the top shelf! Even being wrapped up and unable to move, the villain looked as if he was having the time of his life. He didn't look young enough to be actually a university student, but maybe there was some kind of dare or hazing attempt. Leave it to the hero to come trashing down on such a rockin' party. I don't think the hostages consider this a party. Shota tightened his grip on the scarf, raising an eyebrow when the villain only beamed at him. I don't suppose you'd be willing to come quietly? Those who weren't drunk idiots were scrambling out of the way, either leaving the bar entirely or finding a place to hide. Shota noticed a few of them were still singing up on the stage, looking completely unconcerned. What? You're not even gonna ask for my name first? The villain gave a wide, toothy smile, orange-tinted sunglasses slipping down the bridge of his nose. I thought they raised you heroes with some manners. Shockingly enough, those manners don't apply to villains like you. I'll ask you one more time. Come quietly. Shota didn't bother to make it much of a question, instead checking to make sure the path to the door was clear and getting ready to use his quirk as soon as he would need it. Man, you're such a drag, Eraserhead! Whatever amusement Shota had in the situation vanished quickly as he looked back to the grinning villain. Shota knew that he was known as a pro-hero, but he was an underground pro-hero. The public wasn't meant to know his name. Villains, however, they knew his name. Oh? That got your attention? Ready to hear my name then? Tch. Shota gave a little tisk, finally nodding his head. Honestly, these types got more and more dramatic each year. He couldn't believe some of them thought that fighting in leather was comfortable, not to mention the sunglasses when they were in a dark bar. You're looking at the one and only voice villain, Present Mike. The villain, Present Mike, gave a wide grin and looked like he had no fear. Shota could only stare, finally managing to find the words to describe the feeling that he had inside of him. That's a stupid name. What was that even supposed to mean? Present Mike? It sounded like he just put some cool English words together. Voice villain, though. That meant his quirk no doubt had something to do with his voice. Hey now, that's a great name. Present Mike looked thoroughly offended and he still wasn't fighting back. Sure, you can tell me all about it on the way to the police station. Jerking his scarf forward to make this man start moving. Shota watched as he whined and complained and screamed out a rather loud good night and goodbye to everybody in the bar. Shota was tense the entire way to the police station as he waited for Present Mike to finally use his quirk and escape. But all he did was talk and talk and talk. Shota was starting to wonder if his quirk was simply annoying people with his voice when they finally got to the station, Shota handing the man off to the police officers. Again, he half expected a fight, but Present Mike just grinned at him, seemingly pleased as he could be. Looks like our time together has come to an end, Eraserhead, but don't worry, I'm sure we'll meet again very soon. Staring at Present Mike for a long moment, Shota finally gave a snort of laughter. Right, have fun playing arch nemesis then. It happened occasionally that some thug or up-and-coming troublemaker would target him as some rival or enemy and take him out. They were usually kids that he could scare straight, but this guy looked as if he had one drink too many and needed a few days to sober up. Considering he hadn't even bothered fighting back and no one in the bar looked hurt, Shota was sure Present Mike wouldn't get charged with more than stealing some alcohol and being a public disturbance. Night, current wire, or whatever. Oi, Present Mike. My name is Present Mike. Honestly, like a toddler kid kicking up a fuss. Well, at least Present Mike had made his night briefly interesting, and now he could go home and get some sleep. Not a terrible night, he supposed. A week later from his meeting with Present Mike, and Shota was starting to wonder what gods he had managed to piss off. A response to a series of disturbances in bars along his patrol route showed that the villain was back at it again. This was the third time he was fighting the man, and fighting was a strong word. Come on, Eraser. Surely we can come to an understanding? You know, there's this diner I know that's open late. President Mike was cut off with a grunt as Shota's fist connected with his stomach. A quick kick making the other's knees buckle before he was hitting the ground. Sorry, I don't go out with villains. Ready to come to the police station yet? It was too late for dealing with this. Oh, but I thought we were having fun. The pout looked ridiculous on a man that had to be around Shota's own age, and it was starting to piss him off that he didn't know what the man's quirk was yet. He could probably find out from the police station, but that seemed like too much effort when he didn't care that much. How about you at least agree to come with me for a coffee date? How about no? The second President Mike was back on his feet, he was charging towards Shota, who was a little impressed with the guy's speed. It wasn't really enough to surprise him, though, and soon President Mike was collapsed onto the floor and groaning again. Looking at the latest bar owner, Shota pointed at President Mike as he spoke. Call the police and let them know I'm bringing him in. They'll handle whatever charges you want to press. Please. The owner was an older lady who looked to have been in her fair share of fights, black tail, claws and ears showing she had a mutation quirk. He's not even our most troublesome patron I've had. Damn loud, though. Civilians in this prefecture were always stranger than most, Shota had noticed. He wasn't sure if that made the job easier or harder some days. Though still. With that, Shota wrapped President Mike up in the scarf, once again grateful for his capture weapon as he tugged the man out of the bar before stopping on the sidewalk to properly tie his wrist behind his back with a weapon, bemoaning his lack of handcuffs. He really needed to get more soon. You had better wrap it tightly, baby, or I'll escape. President Mike's flirtatious tone, Shota decided, was the most annoying part of him. That and his pet names. The second most annoying part was the fact that he didn't even seem like a villain. He was more like a misguided annoyance than anything. Why are you even telling me that? Don't you want to escape, villain? Giving a tug to make sure the knot was tight, Shota glanced up to see President Mike was looking over his shoulder, soft expression on his face. Shota noticed his sunglasses, multiple piercings, and that ridiculous hair looked a touch less stupid with that expression. From you, hero? Never. Meeting the other's eyes and staring for a long moment, Shota finally snorted and gave the man's ankles a kick to get him moving. I'm turning you over to the police. And there was that pout again, ineffective as always. Aw, man. If nothing else, Shota supposed that President Mike broke up the monotony of his usual nightly patrols. It was nice dealing with some tipsy idiot with a leather fetish rather than wasting a night on useless tips that never seemed to lead anywhere. He just wasn't sure how to deal with this new villain, though. When he started setting up traps to capture Shota and ending up falling into them himself. Ah, Eraserhead! You're probably wondering why I'm upside down like this. I'm not. But it's all a part of my master plan to capture you. No, Shota's nights certainly weren't boring anymore. He wondered if it was too late to change patrol routes. This was Chapter 1 of Vilainous Heroics by ibelieveinahappilyeverafter, all one word. If you enjoyed this first chapter, please read the rest. Because trust me when I say, this is a strange recommend. Hope the day is swell and the rest treat you well. Bye.